Ever since March of 2017, people have been speculating about when the above-average sized den's gonna squeeze a Switch Pro out to try to compensate for the OG Switch's shortcomings. And if the recent rumors are to be believed, then it looks like we might be seeing one by the end of 2020. But whether or not Nintendo actually pulls a trigger on upgrading the Switch in the near future, though, the real question at hand is should they, and if so, should it really be by the end of 2020? Well, personally, I'd be all for it, but for every pro that comes along with the new Switch in 2020, there are quite a few cons to consider. What pros and cons am I talking about? Well, sit back in your favorite YouTube viewing chair, order a Papa Murphy's pizza for someone who doesn't even own an oven, press the subscribe button if you haven't already, and allow me, Meriden, Connecticut's top-rated exterminator 2 years in a row, CameronAllOneWord, to tell you the pros and cons of a Nintendo Switch upgrade in 2020. Alright, so whether or not I think a Switch Pro is actually coming out in 2020, my guess is that it's probably gonna happen, given how similar the rumors feel to the Switch Lite that ended up becoming a reality. And with the PS5 and Xbox Series X almost certainly coming out this year, it would definitely be in Nintendo's best interest to not let Sony and Microsoft hog all the thunder. I usually try not to get too worked up over rumors or leaks involving the Nintendo Switch, seeing as how there's like 800 new ones every few hours, especially when they're about things we don't even need to know about right away, like games that are coming out in like 10 months. However, the rumors about the Switch Pro not only make sense, but it's also something we really do need to know about as soon as possible, whether you're thinking about buying a Switch in the near future, or even if you own one right now. I mean, after all, it'd suck horse ass to buy a base model now, only for an upgrade to come out in a few months and render your new console obsolete. And I totally get it'd be stupid for Nintendo not to hold off on confirming a Switch Pro for as long as possible, seeing as how they still want people to keep buying regular Switches in the meantime, but it does put the consumer in quite a pickle. I bought a Switch on day one, and personally, I feel like I've gotten more than enough entertainment for $300, so I'll happily buy a Switch Pro as soon as it becomes a thing. But seeing as how I just bought a Switch Lite, there is a part of me that would feel a little gypped. I mean, if Nintendo makes a Switch Lite Pro, then I'd either feel like I need to sell my current Switch Lite and upgrade that as well, or whether or not a Switch Lite Pro even happens, it'd feel a little bit weird playing my regular Switch Lite knowing it can't play games that utilize the Switch Pro's upgrade. But speaking of the Switch Pro's upgrade, I'm not even sure it'd make that much of a difference in the end anyway. I mean, right now, we have no idea if the Switch Pro's even real, let alone how powerful it'd be, but even if the boost is significant, Nintendo probably wouldn't start making the first-party games exclusive to the newer model, because that'd pretty much make the Switch Pro a straight-up successor, not to mention a middle finger to the current Switch owners. And it's not even like third parties would see a whole lot of appeal to the Switch Pro either, because the whole reason why third parties make games for the weaker Switch in the first place is mainly due to the high install base of over 40 million people. I mean, sure, the extra power would be nice for companies like Capcom who don't feel like trying to get games like Resident Evil 2 or 7 running on the standard Switch, but any games exclusive to the Switch Pro would be the same thing as putting a game out for a brand new console. I mean, it's for these exact reasons why there aren't any exclusives to the PS4 Pro or Xbox One X, and if there aren't going to be any exclusives, then why bother upgrading at all? I mean, the poorly named new 3DS had a handful of exclusives, which technically makes that a successor to the original 3DS, but it was hardly enough to make the upgrade a must-own or anything like that. So either the Switch Pro is going to have exclusive games rendering the original model obsolete, thus pissing early adopters off in the process, or it's going to be an upgraded model that isn't allowed to utilize any of the extra power anyway, thus making it a nice option for people who have extra money to spare, but nothing that you really need to buy, just like the PS4 Pro or Xbox One X. In either scenario, though, one huge benefit from a Switch Pro would be that the base model Switch would almost certainly see a price drop, which would be a con for people who just bought a Switch, but great for everybody else. But who knows, though, a Switch Pro might be like $400 and the base model might stay at $300. But if I had to guess, though, then I'd assume that a Switch Pro would likely be relatively cheap anyway, and that most people would probably just spend a little bit more on the upgrade, and that it wouldn't be too long before the original model got phased out altogether. But then again, the new 3DS didn't kill the OG 3DS off, so anything's possible, I guess. Personally, while I always say graphics matter less than ever before, I do still prefer more power if it's possible, so honestly, I wouldn't have a problem if the Switch Pro killed the original model. I'm sure Nintendo would always make sure their first-party games work on the standard Switch, but it'd still be pretty cool if we could get portable versions of multiplats like Red Dead Redemption 2. And if you think the Switch Pro is not going to be able to handle multiplats that are on the PS5 and Xbox Series X, then think again, because like I said earlier, third parties prefer a high install base over power, because more people buying a game means more money for the company. And seeing as how there's over 100 million PS4 owners out there, you could bet that multiplats are going to be on 8th generation platforms for at least a few more years, just like how PS4 games were still on the PS3 till fairly recently. Not to mention that Just Dance games are still coming out on the dingus Wii. But since multiplats are going to be on 8th generation hardware for the near future, 2020 really is the perfect time for a Switch Pro, because if it replaces the original Switch to any degree and you're making games for the PS4 or Xbox One anyway, then it makes sense to just release a Switch Pro version as well. Sure, the PS5 and Series X versions might still look better, but the Switch Pro and even PS4 and Xbox One versions would still look good enough since multiplats aren't going to fully utilize the new hardware till more people own the new consoles, because it'll only make porting games to the older hardware much more of a hassle. Plus, the Switch Pro is also going to have the advantage of portability over the PS5 and Series X, and aside from the extra power, I'm sure we're probably going to see some other advantages like Joy-Cons that actually work. Hell, maybe the Switch Pro would even have GameCube support for their online service, much like the new 3DS did for Super Nintendo games, which would certainly explain why Nintendo's been absolutely refusing to release GameCube games on the Switch, even though the Wii U had Wind Waker and Twilight Princess that could have easily been ported over, and why Luigi's Mansion was re-released on the 3DS instead of the Switch. And even though a Switch Pro would more or less render the Switch Lite obsolete, I'd still prefer a Switch Lite Pro over not having one. I mean, like I said, it'd suck to have to sell mine and upgrade, but I'd rather do that than feel like I'm playing the shit model while I'm traveling or at the gyno. And besides, it's not like anybody'd be forcing me to upgrade, since I'm pretty sure the base Switch model is probably going to be fully supported for at least a few more years. So at the end of the day, the pros for an upgraded Switch model by the end of 2020 would be improved performance, overall design, a cheaper base model, probably more games than a Switch Lite Pro, with the cons being that first-party games wouldn't be able to fully utilize the extra power, third parties might not want to, the base model might disappear, and it might piss people off who bought the original Switch and Switch Lite. All things considered, I think the pros of a new upgraded Switch definitely outweigh the cons, and that 2020 is the perfect time to drop one so that Sony and Microsoft don't hog all the thunder with the Series X and PS5. But anyway, what do you think about a Nintendo Switch Pro dropping in 2020? Do you want an upgrade? Will you feel like Nintendo gave you the middle finger for buying a Switch? Or have you not bought a Switch yet at all? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, I'll try my goddamnedest to respond to everybody. But let me tell you, if there's two people who don't need upgrades because they're perfect the way they are, then it would definitely be today's patrons of the day, Aaron Ayala and John Polish Impossible to Say. If you want to be badasses like these two, then consider supporting FU Game Crew on Patreon for loot boxes in the mail and other wacky rewards. And if you want to make a cameo, then send pictures or videos of you rocking any FU Game Crew merch like these legendary human beings you see before you. As always, like and share this video anywhere on the internet to help this channel grow. And if you want to prove that you're not down with registered sex offenders, then go ahead and press the subscribe button if you haven't already. My name's CameronAllOneWord, and I'll be back with more videos soon.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.